I'd like to call to order the fire board meeting of February 17th. Could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Beckman?
Here.
Fox? Fox?
Yes.
Verplank?
Here.
Phelps?
Yes.
Pullen?
Here.
And Miller?
Here.
And Stacy has Stacy contacted me, Keith is not doing well, and she was pretty sure she would miss the meeting today. They called in hospice and didn't start looking.
Oh, that's not good.
So, if you would all rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Would you please silence your cell phones and try to refrain from texting? Let's get through this meeting. Do we have an approval of the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
Second.
Oh. Okay, great.
Mary?
Yeah,
Mary?
go ahead.
Wondered if it would be okay with the board if we maybe discuss some of the Lake Shore Drive recent correspondence that I got hit with over the weekend.
And where would you like?
With your permission, 11C.
Sure you don't want to put it under 12?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Whatever.
12B.
It's less of an action item maybe than 12.
Yeah.
12B is where we're headed?
Yeah.
Okay.
12B.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, we talked about the chief's salary moving forward. Is that unfinished business? Are we gonna, where do we stand on that? Are we gonna talk about that? Are we gonna put something together to do some research on it, or?
I started doing some research.
Well, why don't we do that in fire board comments, and then we
Okay,
can put it
that's
on
fine.
the agenda next time.
Okay, sounds good.
So, you want to change your...
As amended?
As amended.
All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, moving forward, we have approval of the minutes of the January 20th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the
I'll
January 20 meeting.
I'll second it. Sorry.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
And I'm at fault here, I forgot to type up the minutes of the closed session, so we'll have to cover that during the next meeting. Sorry. Moving on, public comment on agenda items only. Please hold your comments for 3 minutes. Anybody out there want to speak? Griffin, you want to say anything?
Good, thank you.
You sure?
Hot now.
Sorry. Moving on, request for payment. I have a motion for the accounts payable.
I'll make a motion. Pay the accounts payable of $161,241.86.
Yeah.
Motion by Phelps and second by Fox to pay the receipts in the amount of $161,241.86. Is there any discussion?
I got two questions. Mactel bank fees, is that $109 something we're paying every month?
No, it's close. That's the highest it'll ever be. So it's now, it's based on how many dollar amounts you have in the account. So usually we make money on the bank.
Okay.
But that was for the month of February. That would have been January's fees, and so then you probably won't see that now. It's about once a month we get popped because we don't have enough cash left in the bank. Cause I got it transferred over in this like pool class where we're making more interest.
Oh.
Once a month?
You said once a month we'll get?
No, once a year, well,
Oh, once a
usually,
year.
because you don't see it there for this interest that we get, so.
Okay, all right.
The month of January is just about the lowest cash flow that we have.
Okay.
so.
Alligator Puzzle 2, need first responders go and service priorities.
Slugget and Bloom, legal fees.
I can,
Is this,
answer
Board of
that,
Appeals?
We have that in,
You want the
retro
bill.
votes. Interlocal agreement for the street and license. It's all the Board of Appeals. And, in retro votes.
You don't have it broken down to which is which? And the
Yeah,
only-
actually, I broke it down and sent it to Peter. One of them is for, one of them is for research on the Live Fire Training Center, for a grant. But, then the other one was on the handbook. I'm still working on the handbook. So those two were separate of that. And then, a FOIA request. There was something we thought was very unusual as far as the FOIA request, and that he asked for some specific medical information. I've never had that, so I sent it over to the lawyer, and it cost me $100 for that opinion on that. But then the rest of it, is Board of Appeals. The next one's gonna be pretty heavy with retro votes because, we're paying for drafting the interlocal agreement for the street and license, and we're paying for the riparian rights lines that the special's putting on there. So, you know, we're not out of the woods yet on this, but here's Board of Appeals, here's North Shores, Board of Appeals, planning documents, Board of Appeals.
And the only reason why I bring that up is I see on 10, we're gonna talk about the Board of Appeals.
Right.
And I'm sure we're gonna start talking about what we should charge, and that information is pretty good to...
Yeah, that might be a good idea to hold on to it.
Why wouldn't we split the retro
Yeah.
votes thing?
That's another thing.
Yeah.
Well, that should.
Well, I was gonna recommend to the board that the board does not agree to this at all. I was told this, and I was, Kirk, and I said, well, you do what you gotta do. But
I get that the city would
Right.
wanna pay for it, but why it should all be.
But I also was not aware at all that it would have been nice if somebody would have shared with me the riparian rights thing was going to our attorney for riparian rights lines. I get it and all that. It would have been nice to know that before I got sent a map for approval that I knew nothing about. And then I don't feel it's fair that we have to pay for that. We've already paid $6,000 or $7,000 for stuff for retro votes. And I would never recommend to the board that you pay that whole bill, because it's, what I see this is a two-way street, and this whole thing downtown has been one way with retro. Well, Kirk's fault, you know, kind of the position we've been placed in with this whole, hey, we're using your property, because clearly the taxpayer's property was used, that came out in the presentation. It was used with no agreement in place, no payment to the taxpayers.
Well, I just, it's insane to me.
Mhm.
Was it retro that did that?
Yeah.
I think, it doesn't sound right to me.
I was told by
let
Kirk,
Dan and I-
you'll be paying for this, by the way, you'll be paying for this, you do what you gotta do.
Dan and I will go speak with
And I said, well, at that point, my response was, you know what, maybe there should be an interlocal agreement for the police using our station. So I was gonna wait and see how this all pans out. Because as far as I'm concerned, we've paid way too much for two things. This whole Bosgrove thing and the retro thing. And frankly,
The notion that retro votes would get this agreement at no cost.
No cost.
Yeah.
It's beyond stupid.
They should pay half of it.
right.
And the city should pay the other half, not the fire department.
Yeah.
It's not our property. We are renting it or
Yeah,
leasing
but
it
our
for an
agreement,
hour.
but we're party to
But we-
that agreement, and
Well, we don't pay anything for it, so, you know, I understand part of it. I do not, I think it should be cost shared. I would recommend against this board agreeing to pay for the full bill of that, you know, because it just, there's no equity in it.
Well, let Dan and I go back to the
Yeah.
city and discuss this with them, because that doesn't sound right.
But I was not given a lot of options on, I was given no options at all, and I think Kirk's doing what he thinks is best because of the, of what's going on there. There's a lot of pressure with some board members on this. The committee recommendation was that they go along with the street and license, that we split it up.
Well,
We
he
didn't
did-
have to give them 15 feet, we did it in the spirit of cooperation. And even though it was used the whole summer, we said, yeah, go ahead, as long as we can put our boat here and do this. And I didn't think it was prudent, nor would this board go along with going through this every year. So I refused to sign a one-year street and license. And I said, I want a 10-year license, so they wisely worked out an interlocal agreement because the street and licenses were capped at 1 year. So Kirk and Cliff, the lawyer, and Jeff, the other lawyer, said, let's do an interlocal agreement. Ran it across me, I said, that's great, that's what I was told we'd be paying for.
Let me talk to them.
That doesn't sound right to me.
I'll talk to
Yeah,
them.
you'd think.
I understand if we're gonna have a multi-year agreement, that we need to have a little skin in the game, I
Right,
get that.
that's true.
I
Yeah.
do get that, but not to put the whole thing.
No.
Well, I wonder if
And it's a
what we're paying
safety
for
issue.
is the multi-year agreement, or if we're paying for the whole thing. I'll check. with
Yeah,
her.
I think we need clarification. All I know is they came to the conclusion that an interlocal agreement was a great way. I had done that with the Live Fire Training Center, and then it was, you know, you're gonna have to pay for this whole thing.
So that means Retro Boats has a one-year agreement, and we
Yeah.
have a 10?
And they don't pay anything?
No,
They will
Retro
pay.
Boats does,
They'll be paying.
yeah.
Which was between the city, see, originally, I did not have the right to sub-license that. That was one of my problems, I was violating the city's license. Then the city made an exception and gave us the right to sub-license that to Retro to kind of make the peace and allow them to continue to use that till we could sort it out. He refused the, and we paid for that. He refused to sign it,
Who, Retro does?
yeah.
How
Well,
does
they don't
everyone,
have to use it.
And then he was allowed to continue to use it.
how does everyone else in this town sublease the street end property?
It's with agreements.
Well,
No,
just
no,
like
we
we-
lease,
You lease.
we
it.
lease, two street
Right.
ends in the park.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
And then we lease it to Singapore.
But we have an agreement.
We have
We have an
Yeah,
agreement.
Right.
spelled out an agreement, which I'm sure you paid for.
Oh, yeah.
You'd think they'd been over backwards to the fire department, the safety issue alone.
Well, we
In
have-
the city's defense, they've been hammered, you know, but it's just, it's about the money in one regard, but we happen to believe that, we know deep down, the city believes public safety should be foremost above profits,
Yeah,
and we believe that they're gonna do that.
yeah.
So we just have to trust. But meanwhile, you know, we're getting all these bills racking up for this stuff, and it's not over with. I assure you, next month's gonna be brutal. And to me, that should go to Harrington, and should go to Retro Boats.
Mhm.
That's not our problem.
No.
They created this. You
Well,
know?
that part should go to
Right.
the 10-year street
And,
end.
and Mr. Harrington's the one that rented that property out without no approval for many years to Bill Kay, to Erlinson, and he had no right to do so. But that all just got swept under the carpet. And we're the ones that have been made to look like the bad guy from Retro Boats. And frankly, my staff has had it with it.
Well, as much as the township and the city of Douglas shouldn't be paying for that issue, just
Okay,
like
no.
the two cities shouldn't be paying for the Boscraft incidents.
Right.
Like, you know, that's why I asked how much of that was the Board of Appeals.
No, what I had done is I had highlighted, and I try to do that every month, is so we can allocate, because that's one thing I don't like about this billing, it's all commingled. So I call attention to Jane and Peter on this, but I didn't bring it to the board's attention, because it almost gets to be commonplace. It's just like every month it's Bosgrove or retro.
Any other questions? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure, so it's a motion by Phelps, second by Fox, so start with Phelps,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Fairplink,
Yeah.
Poland, and Miller.
Yes.
Okay, Peter, would you do the financial report?
Okay, so the revenues trickling in, we've collected just shy of 71% of the revenues that we originally budgeted. People are paying their property taxes. The expense side, there's a couple towards near the bottom. The dues and subscriptions is a little bit over, with technology is over, and medical supplies are the only line items that were over the original budget amount. Everything else looks in great shape. The one that was new for this year we can look at is the paid on call stipend. You know, originally they budgeted like $115,000 for the entire year, so we are 7 months through this and we're only at 41%, so that's under budget for right now.
Where is that one?
It's
What number is it?
About
It's written here.
the sixth one down from the
Okay,
top.
I got it. Thanks, Scott.
So I don't know, does anybody have any particular line item questions, any particular ones that stick out, or? You know, the fire calls, you know, everything is, the fire calls, the medical calls, are, you know, we should be right around there about 58%. So the fire calls are a little ways down. The only one that's pushing pretty strong, you know, we're gonna have to do some, probably, we'll have to have a budget adjustment, is the operational wages. We're just shy of 80%, and that's through January. And I guess the other one that was in the bills we just paid, we had the $42,000 truck payment for the KME. There's still one more payment. One more payment of another $42,000 here a year from now, then that note will be paid in full.
Good.
Would it be better to pay that off now?
No, the interest rate is, you know.
So low.
Yeah, the interest was like 1.9, so
Oh,
we're only
geez.
talking, we can make, you
I
know.
am good at this.
We should buy another truck, because we're so low.
No, that's not gonna happen, so.
But, no, we looked at that a couple of years ago, we had the cash, but we were making more.
making more on interest.
Yeah, to worry about it.
All right. Any other questions about the financial report? Okay, moving on, fire chief comments?
All right, I'll go through this. As you know, it's pretty early in the year, so, we finished up January with 62 calls. February, we haven't racked anything in there. Pretty typical as far as a January. I think one thing we're down in calls, about 8%. We've had a very mild winter in comparison. Very little snow, so that takes all the incidents off the highway. So, been quiet. Good thing. Still Thursday, Friday, Saturday, busy days, particularly Friday. Time of the day, pretty much during the day, nothing extraordinary there. Infers, typical, you'll see 300 series, which used to run 65%. You can see it's right around 40 calls, so it's right around 63%. MVIs, motor vehicle incidents, are down.
Sure.
Yep. That bar graph, of course, will be down by the month. You can see we've only had 2. It's the lowest in the history of 5 years so far. Below average. Special events.
None for January, that's good.
What do we have in February?
What was the special event in February? Was there one?
We haven't had one yet.
We haven't had it yet.
Oh.
We had,
That's right.
we had 3 special events, but they were all done by the day crew, so we don't register the hours for the day crew. So that's why we have 0 on this chart.
Oh, this is really one that was a surprise to me, overlapping calls. As you know, call on top one another, it's only showing 2 for February. Pretty extraordinary. That's a good thing. This is typical, broken down geographically. 1 on the highway. Don't see that often. Grace and Douglas, we'll get to that report with the board's approval later on. So we just had 2 calls, and one of those calls was they thought they had a fire there.
Oh.
And it turned out to be a sprinkler alarm. Frozen from a flow switch that was tripped from the sprinkler releasing water, because the line froze up in the plenum.
Did they evacuate the whole place?
I'm sorry?
Did they evacuate it?
They evacuated that hall. With a healthcare facility, we shelter in place. So what we do is relocate people to another hall behind the fire doors.
Oh, okay.
Because we could conceivably do more damage to somebody outside by the time we get buses in there, in the interurban.
Yeah.
I do have some pictures we can show from that.
Shelter in place.
Okay.
And I learned that from the state when I was a state marshal.
I read about that.
Particularly with the respiratory problems and things that people have. But, you know, a little line and boy, the damage is just phenomenal.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that, you know, they have to do fire watches because the sprinkler system is shut off. And then the maintenance supervisor came in the middle of the night, called the contractor, and they got him out there about 1 in the morning and repaired the system. We required 2-hour fire watches because the system was off. And crews went back Saturday to double check on it. I reported it to the state this morning to let them know. That's basically those orange PVC lines. And you can see it's well within an outside wall, but they bring outside air in to mix in the hallways. Somewhere the outside air is getting in that plenum. And it froze and split. Yeah, it's a big inconvenience and a cost for them, because now that has to all be completely dry before they can move them back in. And that is a B hall that you're looking at.
Do we know how many residents was evacuated?
I don't know how many rooms were occupied. I don't know. I can find out.
Yeah.
Usually don't get that detail, you know, at night, but I can get that
Yeah,
answer.
because that's some of the data that we try to track, so.
Will do. So, that's where we're at there. Just typical data that we share with the board. Next up, I don't think there's anything really critical after that, right, Eric?
Response times.
We're down to 511. The weather certainly,
It's helping.
certainly contributed to that. Priority 1s and 2s, you had 34, which is higher than expected on priority 1s and 2s. Okay, good.
I
Thank you.
notice Our Lady on Second Street has become a problem.
Yeah, yes.
Are we doing anything about that?
Yes, ma'am, we are. I'm glad you asked. We do have data on that, and what I've done to report to the board, we've sent out 3 cost recovery bills for that particular call.
What about the Manchester?
Yeah, the one on Manchester. seems to
Not
be-
yet. It's 4 and 3 months.
Oh, okay.
So I had John look that up for me when I was in Traverse City, because I couldn't remember what it was. You can see the activity on the screen just since January 1st, the activity, and you can see 75, 79, 89, 90, it's,
This is from the same person?
yes, sir, right. And
Oh.
this
The
is
second
is
street.
Douglas, so,
What's the problem?
Comes in about,
Tell me after the meeting, because I wasn't here. They don't have me
But
for
no,
me,
less
so
than a month.
we won't go.
right.
Yeah.
Some of, you know, in one day, you can see, 24-hour span there. So we've sent out bills, and I have to direct my staff to do a breathalyzer each time, and we've had it flagged where the police go there, and there's times Douglas police don't have time to go running to somebody in this. They're busy doing other things, so we can't validate that there's ETOH involved. So we have to, because what if the person says, well, how do you know? We don't know.
So we have a breathalyzer.
No, Douglas Police has to do that. We wait for them,
Okay.
and sometimes we have to
We don't
wait.
have the authority to.
And we have to wait, and that takes them out of the mix. Meanwhile, an ambulance is coming, so you see the compound cost
Yeah.
of services is pretty much out there. So the way I see this going is, to me, this is predictable, this will never get paid. We'll have to go to Douglas and put it on the tax bill. So it's important that we share this with our Douglas reps, because this is something we all agreed to.
Yeah.
This is beyond what we're supposed to be doing.
So the fact that EMS requests police department respond to all calls there, that's not,
Not if they were on, the last call I heard, they were delayed, they couldn't get there. We could get a breathalyzer.
Are we
I was gonna
authorized?
say, they're not that expensive.
No, they're not, we just have to have it calibrated, you know.
Are we authorized to do that?
I can get that.
It probably wouldn't stand up in court, but.
so are you,
This-
who are you,
Right.
billing? Are you billing,
Resident.
not America Connect or whatever it is? I thought we were gonna start billing them.
No, because the
They don't
thing,
know.
the problem is, they're doing their job, she
AMR.
fell and she called for help.
Connect, so-
It was an erroneous call. Their contract doesn't say, well, you can only fall and call us under certain conditions.
But,
Does she own the house, or is she a renter?
I hope so.
Otherwise
If not,
she-
the guy's gonna be really pissed off.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's all right.
We made that assumption, we actually heard that when we checked on this last year, that she was the owner of the house. But James' point is well taken, we felt in this instance that since there was, the person needs help, and we can't do it, we can't help her anymore, there's nothing we can do. We even had our ER doctor there talk to her, what can we do with this? He says, I don't know what to do.
but EMS can say they won't respond, but we don't have that.
I don't know that AMR can refuse to respond. AMR can refuse to transport her, but on the contrary, because she's not capable of making her decisions, she should be made to go. They don't want to take her because of the costs of the system, and they've refused to take her because of the ETOH situation,
What's ETOH?
alcohol.
Oh, okay.
It's a kinder way of saying vodka.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I didn't know what ETOH was.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So
I should
have you
explain
taken
that.
this to medical control, Chris? I mean, is there?
Well, yeah, we did, and that's when Mary Wakeford got involved and got them set up with, I think it was Senior Resources and whatever the other services, like the Adult Alliance on Aging or something like that. And that, I believe, helped and there's now someone that's gonna be moving in with her full-time
Oh, good.
as an in-home aide, but I'm not sure they're capable of picking her up off the floor themselves is still the problem, and ultimately it comes down to the vodka, I think, is the reason she's falling.
You can see, oh, sorry, Chris. You can see the one call, look at line number 83, call number 68. The situation was at 9:45 in the morning. Now, we have had a couple of calls where it was a legitimate fall. There was no ETOH. involved. So that's what we have to be careful of. There was just an older person that fell, she tripped on something, and that happens.
I know.
So we always have to respond, but,
Yeah, twice last week.
you know, if you scroll up, Eric, please.
I fell.
Is it because you were hungover?
No.
I mean, there was a period where it was quite a lapse. I mean, look at between May and August. So that would be, I'm reading this like, so line 73 to 74. So
4 months.
it's 2019, May, okay? You can see that some of that stuff, I'm sorry, I gotta jump over here, July
Right.
to
November.
July to
July to
November.
November.
Yeah.
So, we did something and it worked for a while and now it's not working anymore, that was my whole point.
Correct.
So why isn't it working anymore?
This is the same person.
Yeah, it's the same person. And there's only one person in the house, and there's a home health care nurse, but not a full-time person. So we don't know how
So is it time to
she
fill
acquires
out
it.
paperwork again, or?
Well, I have personally filed 3 forms on her,
Mhm.
you know, so,
Well, I would think because of the fact that it got better and now it's worse again, that, you know, more paperwork
I
needs to
think
be
that
filed.
time was, she might not have been home, because
Yeah.
I know a couple times she's been like at the Grace of Douglas for rehab.
She actually had broke her wrist, I believe, and was in a facility for most of that, 6 months or whatever.
Oh,
So,
all right.
that helps.
Okay.
Not that she should break her wrist again.
Nobody said that.
but-
We'll have to break her.
Well, maybe
So-
just put her in a cast. You don't really have to break the wrist. I'm kidding. So, moving on,
so that's where we're at on,
She is still the property owner too of that home.
yeah, it's on the
Yep.
tax roll.
Yep.
Moving on, state of Michigan, there have 18 fire deaths since the last meeting.
I know it.
You know, the one in Grand Rapids was brutal. They let the fire burn and they tried to resuscitate the family on the lawn and they lost them.
Are these 18, these aren't 18 separate calls, like the one was 4
No,
people?
no, like there was,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
you could have a multi-death fire,
Okay.
multi-kill.
Okay.
But no, that's 18 separate structures, 26 fatalities.
18
I'm
since the
sorry.
last meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 18 fatalities, sorry.
Right.
But it is all together, I think it's like 24 structures, and now it's up to almost 30, since there was another couple over the weekend.
That was one with the
Yeah,
mother and 3
it's-
kids.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
This has been one of the worst I've ever seen it.
It is.
So this was kind of a real tearjerker. We worked on this grant for the firefighter training council. That was, the goal of the grant was to award the applicants a grant for anything to do with live fire training. We're like, yes. And I'm on this council, but I wasn't at this meeting, which is good, so I'm not gonna vote for my own grant. And we got placed lower on the list, and they ran out of money. So we passed the grade on the grant, but they ran out of money. So they may acquire more money being returned, and if they get another $97,000, we'll get our grant award.
And can you reapply for next year?
Yeah, we'll do one every year, and each year the grant criteria changes to, this was, we couldn't write this grant on a regional approach. So one year it's a single department, then the next year it's regional, and then it reverts back.
Well, apply for it next year.
We'll try it again. But we're still hopeful maybe another $97,000 will come back. In our continued efforts to educate and become better in the fire service, I am very happy to report we have some major certification achievements. Chris Bernardi, he is Fire Instructor 1. He is Fire Inspector 1. John Miles is Fire Instructor 1. Elliott is Fire Instructor 1. Scott Seymour is Fire Instructor 1. Bill McGowan went from an MFR to an EMT.
That's good.
Good, very good.
What's this flash meeting?
It's a basic.
Oh.
So, Want to share with the board, I got invited, which is a real honor, to, some of you may know, I sat on the Michigan Public Safety Communication System Interoperability Board for the state of Michigan. We advise the governor on interoperability matters. I was governor appointed. When a new governor came in and my term was up, the new governor didn't reappoint myself and a few others. I was kind of disappointed, but nonetheless, the Interoperability Board retained me as a co-chair of the pager work group and another work group that they had. I was invited to a conference this year, Monday through Friday at Traverse City, and they requested I speak before the group, about 225 attendees, on communications within buildings and the building code and the fire code. So I conducted 2 presentations up there. They paid my way, and there was no cost to the fire district on that. So, real happy with that. Some of my staff helped me with PowerPoint. That's not a strong suit with me. So Eric and Chris Manos helped me, and it was very well received. So I want to share that with you.
Good, good. Glad to hear that.
Thank you. On a side note, the director, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the director of MPSCSB, the governor's office, and Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs want me to reapply in March. So we'll see what happens. It's a quarterly meeting thing. Appreciation dinner. I got the caterer to agree on a date, and I got the church to agree on a date. I hope that you can make this date. Save the date, March 28th. This is for the firefighters, and we love having the fire board members there, and whomever they can bring with.
St. Pete's.
So it's at St. Pete's. They won't take any money for that.
Really? Well, that's nice.
First year they charge us half price. They refuse a deposit, there's no charge. The caterer's charging food only, nothing for the labor. So again, this is for these guys out here, and we hope you can save the date and join us.
Same caterer?
Yes.
Farmhouse.
Yep.
Farmhouse.
Farmhouse, they're
You do a good job.
fantastic. So, and we like the whole, dealing with the whole local thing, you know. We like, nice to mix it up, but that's just such a nice area, lots of room, and
Yeah, that's a good thing.
You know-
I mean, we've been to a lot of places.
It gets tight.
It gets a little tight. That one's a good one.
And then what, we're gonna do the same thing where, you know, we'll announce it, but I wanna let you know now, everyone bring their own beverage of choice, so. Yeah, that concludes my chief comments, Madam Chair.
Moving on, unfinished business, healthcare facility response update.
The board asked me to speak with Grace Douglas, so I got a committee together to review the 45, 46 responses that were there. And it was David Blatt, as you know, our interior resident doctor, and John and Kyle helped out with this, and they reviewed it. And in conclusion, there's very little misinterpretation of how they're rating the people. There's only 3 instances that David said could be construed as they embellished that, so I thought it wasn't even 10% of the calls. I didn't think it was worth it at this time to approach Grace Douglas. Word got around that we were questioning that, and it got back to me. I said, all we're doing is looking into it. Nobody's criticizing, we just felt it was higher than normal, and that's our job, to look at costs of things. So I set them at ease, but with your permission, I think I would monitor this, and another time, if you want me to go talk to them, I will.
That's less than 10%, that's...
Is that okay?
I don't think that's a bad thing to do, an annual audit of things like
Yeah.
this, and sit down with them. It's not anything bad, we're just auditing
Right.
the process.
Right. So, you know, it's real easy, you know, when you want to speed up an ambulance, say, I know I'm on tape. You know, you got a broken hip, somebody's screaming in pain, and he's 40 minutes out, yeah, gosh, they're having trouble breathing, all of a sudden it
Yeah.
jumps up the ladder.
Yeah.
Because we're helpless. We've done it. I've done it. So, okay, is that all right with everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks for doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is an IFC BOA update. Aaron, do you want to do this?
Sure.
What is IFC BOA?
The
Board of
International
Appeals.
Fire Code Board of Appeals.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Board of
Okay.
So we finished the appeal from North Shores a week ago, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. So they had appealed the decision at the North Shores property, based on which code was applied, and then the decision based on that code. So our decision as the Board of Appeals was to ask the fire department to go back and use either the
NFPA?
NFPA
That's
1142,
easy one.
thank you, or the
The wild land
Yeah.
urban.
I call it the interurban code.
Yeah.
It's the International Wildland
Wildland.
Urban Interface Code.
Yeah.
It's easier to say interurban code.
In the urban code. To use either of those two codes, which is referenced in IFC to make their decision, which may end up in the same requirements, or even potentially more stringent requirements, but uses a different code base to get there. So that was the end result. I haven't heard anything since then.
We had to get some code information. We had to reach out to ICC. And we asked for a commentary, which is not written. We asked for more information. And it's still not even there yet. And Mr. Basgroff sent an email that, you know, where is my plan review? That's why we don't use 1142 and the interurban code. But we're going to do as we're directed, and we're trying to reach out to as many fingers as we can to get that. Frankly, we were waiting on them to resubmit because they know the code so well. There's all different criteria. That hasn't happened. Which kind of leads me to, I'm hoping you're going to approve these fees because we're writing their reviews. We're doing all this work for them. If they know the code so well, I don't need to come up with their finishings, and I don't need to come up with their specifications. That's up to them to provide me.
I would agree with that.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that
And,
too.
and
Definitely.
the costs are staggering. So, and I think Eric kind of gave me a tip on November, hey, we should really look at these fees, which I try to do every December, but December was jammed with something else, so I postponed it till February. So this is an update of fees. And we, you know, Chris and I talked about this, and they really have to resubmit to us, so we'll be sending an email tomorrow morning.
So they develop a plan and then resubmit it to you?
They're gonna have to submit the plan based on the Wildland Interface Code, which is all different criteria, because they have to follow that standard now. As you know, that standard is 1,500 gallon per minute with hydrants. So,
And the authority having jurisdiction makes the final
it makes no
determination,
difference
right?
whether, yeah, it's with
It's
hydrants,
you.
and there's gonna be hydrants there. I'm not taking a dime store water supply. So you circumnavigated, I think what you had is a technicality, you know, with the problem with there's no municipal type water system there, that's why I wanted one. But I understand the predicament the board was in. My dilemma is, what's gonna happen with all the developers don't have hydrants in there now? You're gonna be going through this every time. That's what we're gonna have.
What happened, if I remember correctly, back to the first appeal they did, what happened to the municipal water supply that's at 135th and whatever that is?
They extended it.
They extended it to that,
Right.
that plot where they built all those commercial buildings. Why can't that be extended further?
It could be, the issue at hand, or issues at hand with extending it in their position is, It's a long way to extend it, and they have to loop it back. They could do that at their expense, because that water main, you know, just for townships purposes, the ordinance is, the township can impose extending the water main if it's adjacent to the property within 2,700 feet. It's 1,500 feet away. Township chose not to. Also, the ordinance says, township ordinance says, even if it's beyond that, the township may impose a cost-shared extension of the water main. They chose not to. So the fire department had to stick its neck out and say, you need to have a pressurized water main, and don't tie it in. Put in a fire pump. This was all disclosed to the township and everyone else in 2017. And you'll see in the Wild and Urban Interface Code, hydrants are a requirement. The only way they're going to do that is with a private service main. So right back to where we started, in a municipal type water system. Furthermore, what I didn't do to the Board of Appeals was, the NFPA 1142, which was referenced by the applicant, the appendix clearly says the AHJ may determine that a municipal type water system is required, which I did. However, appendixes in NFPA are not adopted by code like the fire code. So I didn't reference it, but it's provided as informational as how you get there. How you get there. It's just not part of the content of the code. But it shows how an AHJ can conclude based on the topography and all the elements, which we did, that a municipal type, and that's what I did. I didn't throw that into the Board of Appeals' face because of the fact that it was not part of the code, but explanatory that shows the flow chart. And that's what I did. So,
One question we kind of had is, since this is an IAFC Board of Appeals, and now we ruled that the IFC is not whatever, it's NFPA and interurban.
Yeah.
What if they appeal that?
Yeah.
But isn't it still, we're using that because IFC references?
that's the way I answer it. And that's a fair question, because some of my staff asked me that after that meeting. It's just like International Fire Code references NFPA 13, a sprinkler code. We don't have to adopt NFPA 13 as long as it's references, just like the building code references the fire code for in-building radio coverage. You don't have to adopt the fire code to enforce that, because IFC, your adopted code, references the interurban code, or NFPA 1142, there is no code adoption.
Okay.
That's my opinion, and the opinion of many other fire inspectors and marshals. And if you want to get a lawyer, it's just a lawyer's opinion. But since there was such enforcement on the applicant referencing that, either one of those we can reference. So we chose the Urban Wildlife Code, Wildland Code, because it's an I code. It dovetails with IFC in the 1,500 gallons per minute. So we're still going to get 1,500 gallons per minute. We won't have it for 2 hours. We'll have it for 30 minutes.
Well, and they based their whole argument on fire flow, and there's a lot of other factors that go along with this besides flow. So,
And
they kind of talked themselves into a corner. But I have a question for Griffin. You may not have the answer with you. I hate to put you on the spot, but how about capacity, water and sewer capacity from Cal Lake and the township? Do you have enough capacity for this development?
we'd have to look into it. I mean, I know we're starting to get closer to that level. I mean, my understanding is would, but again, if we were to move to that point, we would have to do a much more thorough investigation.
Right, because I had heard that you're getting to the end of your
Yeah,
capacity too.
My
You
understanding
may have
is
to
we're
buy
getting
more.
to the trigger point to start
Right.
getting warnings. So don't quote me on these specific numbers. But something like when we hit 80% of our capacity, it then triggers that, okay, we got to start figuring out something longer term.
Right.
So I think we're getting close to that trigger level.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm sure you all know, probably even better than I do, the different utility agreements between the 3 municipalities and Cal Lake and Lake Town Township tied in through the town, it is a mess. And talk about confusion and something that in the long term really needs to get sorted out. That's my way of saying, I think we do, I would need to clarify, but overall, there's a lot that would need to get checked out.
Right, okay.
And I sent, after the Board of Appeals, I was kind of numb, and I sent a strongly worded email to the township saying they need to decide what level of fire protection they want for these developments, because this is their deal, and they need to make up their minds if they're going to support their ordinances and the fire department or not. And it's on them.
Chief, can I make one comment
Yep.
on that? And you all know this, and again, I respect it immensely. The problem we're facing now is that this decision was made by folks who are no longer here.
Yep.
So as I agree completely, especially now and moving forward, that's something the township and this township board needs to pay particular attention to. We've seen in the past, specifically with this Dennison property, the problems with trying to implement policy after decisions have already been made. So
Yeah, I think
that's one
it's kind of erroneous if it was even approved. I guess if it was approved, why are we reviewing it? Why are we reviewing it if it's already been decided upon?
I think there's the difference between an approval of a plan unit development and the approval of
Exactly,
a site plan.
precisely. So my position is the water supply has not been approved by the township whatsoever. But I agree with you, a lot of this we inherited, but if there's no say for the water supply, we're wasting our time.
And I
It's a
guess
pretty expensive time.
I guess my question still remains, why would you want to do these huge developments with no water? That doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
And-
That's not how you develop a
And that's something
community.
Griffin and I, we didn't even know this was gonna be 44 houses, it went from 20 businesses to a hotel to God knows what else. And now we ended up with all these single-family dwellings in the whole elements of this. And I felt, with the Board of Appeals, I almost felt like the applicant was instructing the Board of Appeals to decide on the fire flow. And I'm here to tell you, I think that's way beyond what had the authority to do.
And I pointed that out, there were
Right.
6.
Did you
I
sense
loo-
that?
I looked it up, and there were 6 different formulas for fire flow.
That was one of my contentions with this whole thing was...
Probably get 6 different chiefs and argue all day long about it.
Right. And, that's why it's left up to the local authority head of jurisdiction, because he knows his resources, his mutual aid, and he knows what kind of response to anticipate, that people outside of that arena aren't qualified to make those decisions. So I took exception, I didn't say anything, but when you were directed by the applicant's lawyer, do you decide on the fire flow, I was gonna file a protest. And I think that is not within the scope of your responsibility.
And as a Board of Appeal member, I would say that I am not qualified to do that,
Right.
that's plain and simple. And there are so many variables that come into play, figuring out fire flow, that...
You're not the expert.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And fire flow isn't, sorry.
I think there's something else we need to decide in this community, because he's used it both times at both appeals, that this is a rural community. Okay, Allegan County is a rural community, but that doesn't mean every part of Allegan County is rural. And when you build 44 homes together, that's not rural by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, it does
So we need a
fit the
definition for rural.
though. I mean,
But we
according to
need-
the IFC, it
That
fits
still
the-
needs to be
It
clarified.
fits it, and that's what I
That needs
took
to
it
be
as.
clarified.
Yeah, but that's just, it's rural, however, you've got all these elements that allow you to provide a water supply and allow you, if you all agree that it's rural, okay, but it doesn't negate a water supply.
I agree with that.
At all.
I agree with that.
You know, so the thing is, the focus, the over-focus on rural, you were led to.
Right.
You know, I get all that.
You can't tell me Otsego and Plainwell
Yeah.
is a rural.
If we're rural, why don't you just do what Chief Burnham did and have one truck and one tanker here? What do you need all this stuff here for? What do you need us for? Because you aren't rural. You're rural by a definition, but you don't treat the community as a rural community when we have infrastructure everywhere that people have been required to extend by the same people that, here one time you do, next time you don't.
But
There's no consistency.
But when you're talking to a lawyer like that,
I know.
he's gonna look at the definitions, and if it fits in that parameter, that's what it is.
Right.
And that's what a judge would say, and that's the way I looked at
No,
it.
I don't think that's what a judge.
I don't know, it could be, I don't know, that's why, in a way, you know, I've been a businessman most of my life, and you normally talk to a lawyer with a lawyer. We decided, why spend the money? I can go up against any lawyer on fire. But when I have semantics, such as rural, I'm not gonna argue it. Because that's one perspective of doing it. And I also think it's the worst perspective. But you read the code and you see rural, okay, I have that. But then you've got to follow the flow chart. Rural, however, if you have this, and this,
Yeah.
you may increase the fire flow, which is exactly what I did. I followed 1142, and I required a municipal-type water supply.
Well, I'll give you more information off the record later, on my opinion.
And it was also kind of disheartening to personally talk to Mr. Padnos and get all excited about all these options, and then find out his number one problem was the Eagle permit process. I talked to Eagle, and he goes, what do you mean there's a problem? You put it in the right-of-way, you can open trench, you can put in a private main, which was contrary to what I was told by Mr. Padnos. This isn't a big deal, so don't make it a big deal. Do the right thing for the community, invest, put in a private service main. So after that information was on a Friday night, in front of my wife, Mr. Padnos, I go, oh, great. They're gonna come in Tuesday going, we're gonna rethink this.
Well, you called me.
And what happened?
You called me Friday night.
I got the shit knocked out of me, for the record, by a lawyer.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
Well,
moving, let's move on. We can talk this to death.
This gives me a lot of background information I don't know, so.
Okay, so,
I don't mind. it.
under new business, we'll go on to plan review and inspection
Yeah.
fee approval.
so, in Eric, another Ericism, he wanted to see the other plan review fee schedule. So, you'll see the original one that doesn't have draft on it. We postponed and suspended these fees because of what happened in the township. We were getting attacked about the fees, and everything had to go through them.
By the previous administration.
Right, yes.
So we saw an opportunity to reinstate this because the fire code was reinstated in its entirety, and we have the right to charge fees. So we also want to be price sensitive. So the new fee schedule does what? It gives a plan developer an hour and a half of free time. So if we can knock this out in an hour and a half, where it's price sensitive the next thing, we just do it. Anything above and beyond an hour and a half is based on a modest $50 per hour. One of the significant increases you'll see is down near the bottom, rental inspections. We feel $250 that goes to the jurisdiction, we get $75 of that, is very, very unfair. We have to schedule, we have to drive, we have to do the inspection, drive back. We raise that to $125. So we get $125, the jurisdiction gets $125. We feel that's more than fair. We do not feel it's fair to the fire department to get $75 for the fee and the jurisdiction get $175.
We'll let the jurisdiction add 175 on top of it, they're making a difference.
They can change their fees, but they can keep it at $250. And because you look at rental fees, South Haven, and they're kind of all over the board, but we figured this was equitable. We kind of announced this over a year ago, but then we were going through things that were out of our control. So we said, let's just let it ride. But rental inspections are very time-consuming from a scheduling perspective. So we figured we're the ones driving there, driving back, doing the inspection, scheduling, we should be getting $125. So you'll see that in there. And then we also introduced one thing we might do. Say you have a controversial site plan. We may say, we're just farming that out. We're not doing it. And there's a third-party plan reviewer. That bill goes right to the developer. And then legal fees. You'll see Dana Bird, for all these fees shall be paid up front for his review. We get nothing. And this is very typical of engineering or third-party contractors or vendors that handle this. There's fees imposed, and we figure it's time to reinstate this, including legal fees. And we have to get clarification. For example, we have a project in one of the municipalities that says, hey man, I want to put in this foundation, the weather's right, I don't want to build a pond, I can't get it done before the foundation and construction takes place. I'll do, how about an addendum, how about an agreement? So we've been through this before, and we decided we better get attorney review on this. So we inherited those costs, absorbed those costs. The attorney actually said, I advise against this, I would do it a different way. Those fees should be put on to the developer, not absorbed by the fire district.
I agree.
Because they want exceptions, because everybody thinks they're, and you want to be, everything isn't black and white. You want to be flexible to a point. The problem we're having is that the fire district is absorbing so many fees for a few of these that it's getting to be untenable. And I encourage you to approve this fee base is effective immediately. Because it wasn't stated. We actually didn't start charging anybody. It also, I don't want to build any single-family dwelling owner say, I'm building a house, review my driveway. Well, usually it's the builder that brings that in. I still don't feel we should bill single individual property owners. Give them, what do we have, 2 hours?
1.5.
I'm sorry, 1.5 hours. We went back and forth on that. We'll give them the first hour and a half, and we can do a lot of plan review in an hour and a half unless it's some crazy driveway. So bring a single family dwelling, they get the first hour and a half free of charge.
Where is that notice? Sorry.
That would be,
Oh, $50 after 1.5 hours.
yeah, right. So we used to charge for plan reviews for driveways, because sometimes, you know, Aaron wants to build a house in Douglas. You don't know fire codes. We figure it's our job to help Aaron, wants to build a house, here, you need to turn around, here's how you do it. I'm more compelled to do that. Now, what you just get are the developers that come in and say, I'm doing this, they don't know the code, they don't care to know the code, we'll give them an hour and a half. If they keep coming back with revisions, I don't think the taxpayer should fund the development. And I think the taxpayers are funding North Shores, and they're funding some other things. And I don't think that's what the intent is of this board.
It's never been questioned before.
Well, it's never been a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, we added some language on the bottom of this that it basically says, I think people think we're sitting at our computers. Oh, geez, you haven't responded to me. Now, what I have, I'm asked by the county to measure every one of the houses of within 50 feet of Lakeshore. So how do I do plan reviews, inspections, and calls, and now do this that was just laid in my lap over the week?
The county should take care of that.
They're not gonna.
Or pay for it.
Or pay for it.
Yeah. Cool.
I guess it's up to the board we don't talk about, but I'm trying to figure out how am I gonna get this done, because there's probably 100 houses.
Yeah. The
Between
county
Douglas
require
and
it, they can do
Township.
it themselves,
Or
So
pay for it.
or pay for it.
How are you measuring those?
we take a predetermined, it originated from Chief Weiss in South Haven, he started, it was his idea. So you measure from, if there's a rear door on the west side, you measure from that to a center point on the bluff. Thing is, I don't really want to do it now with the snow, because the snow might be drifted over the edge, and where, am I at the edge? So it's measured from the house to the bluff.
I would.
And the county wants us to do that?
I don't think it's our job.
That's bullshit. I disagree with that,
Yeah.
100%.
I'd say no.
Yeah.
And Ron, Vicki and I go down once a week to check the lake shore on our own time. We go to once a week. We were there Saturday morning, because they want this monitored, you know, every week I go there, yep, it's moving.
I got bigger.
You know,
Lake's still there.
and one of the houses in Douglas, you may know, was set on fire
I didn't know that.
on the lake shore.
On the lake shore?
We can't even get to the bloody thing, but it was set on fire and it burned itself out. So it's being investigated. So we're looking at these houses, but now we have a lot more houses that are within 50 feet of them. And they want this measurement because they want to bring in a senator and show the senator that we have all these properties that are 50 feet or less that are close to the...
Can't you do it by Google satellite image?
I was going to check with Eric on that.
Yeah, Google maybe.
Well, the other thing I thought is, can we do it with a drone?
Yeah.
That'd be better than Google.
But
But
here it is.
But why are we paying for that?
Well,
No. We're not gonna pay for a
I
drone.
agree.
No, I know. I'm not getting throwing anything in it.
But what I
So
have
what
a
is-
problem with that is, what are we doing, going to the edge of the bluff to measure where the house is? Isn't that a safety issue?
Well,
If you're at the edge of the bluff, that's a safety issue.
that's why Chief Weiss does it, and that's why I was gonna do it.
I would understand maybe to the, no.
So our number one guy is the
Yeah.
first one to go.
You're supposed to put the cheapest
That's why
guy
the
out
general's
there.
in back. That's why the general's rolling back.
Who was the last guay, Kyle?
That's why he holds the end of the tape measure, the guy with the smart end
Yeah.
in the building.
Kyle, that's your job.
Let's start with the wheel.
Yeah.
Why can't we do it from the center line of the road? And that's their problem, from the road to the bluff.
But why are we doing it?
We shouldn't, but we should get a laser shooter that you don't
How
have
about
to
this,
get out
let
of
me
your
look in
car.
and see how else we can do it. I confirmed with Chief Weiss this morning and said, number one, I was real concerned, I was gonna reach out to Griffin with some answers, because I don't wanna blindside Griffin. I wanna let Griffin know if we decide to do this, you're going on private property. Chief Weiss didn't have as many as we did. He knocked on the door, if the person was there, yeah, go at it. He didn't get one refusal. What if they're not there? And then I didn't want to get chased down out of the township because I'm measuring people's houses.
Well, if you're in a official truck and stuff like
Yeah.
that, they say fire department.
I don't anticipate a problem.
No.
My apprehensions were the quantity of the houses and the magnitude of doing that, and then measuring it once a month. That was my concern.
I'm sorry, I saw this on the agenda and thought, I even said to my wife, I don't know when it became the fire department's problem that the dunes are eroding away. It is not our problem. We are here to serve and protect, I get that. But just because you built your house too close to it's not our problem, and we're gonna put people in harm's way.
Either.
How much time did it, I know Eric's good, but how much time did it take to gather all this information and put it on a spreadsheet when we could be doing other things?
Chief Weiss advises the board it was subject to his availability. He said he hasn't been able to do it for some time now. But that's how this was created, and then our emergency management director said, from now on, you shall follow Chief Weiss' spreadsheet. And I just put my head and my hands on my desk. When am I gonna do this?
And are we gonna get cost recovery from all your time and effort?
You gonna pay for that? Is that gonna come out
It's
of
up
the
to your-
emergency
it's up to your-
management budget?
I
No.
don't think you get anything from the county.
It's time to
Well, that's not gonna
stop.
get done.
That's why I wanted to bring it to the board, because obviously, there's only so many hours in the day, and you gotta tell me what you want me to do. Do you want me to do this?
No.
No.
Okay, next.
I mean, I saw those pictures of the videos you said, those are alarming videos, but I'm saying to myself going,
And I was shocked to get that at 8 o'clock, whatever, last night. I was completely shocked.
From Julie?
Yes. What do I have to do with this?
right?
We don't.
But that's my life.
Why don't we have the Douglas Police do it in Douglas and the Allegan County?
Not even their job.
I know,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, you're just drawing at straws.
Start putting more stuff on the fire departments.
When I had a house built on the lake, back then, the DEQ had a requirement for the distance from
The bluff.
the bluff line. They had a big definition where the bluff line and how far back you had to be from that. That was theirs. There was we're in a rural area up there, big time rural area, and there's no fire department out there measuring any of this nonsense.
I wouldn't think fire
Look at the houses that are.
So if they're the ones that require the measurement, then go the hell out there, you guys go measure.
it.
I agree. You can tell them your board will not allow you to do it.
No problem, I can do it.
Should we make a motion?
I'm thinking that.
Well, I'll just let you know when they fall off. Oh, God.
Hang on to the
Yep,
wheel.
no
Don't lose
problem.
the wheel.
I'm not so sure there shouldn't be a motion. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
And make it official. I'll make a motion that we aren't gonna go out and do the measuring for the county.
Second.
I'll say.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Chris, you can make sure you get that in a minute.
Yeah, so this will go under Lakeshore Drive,
Yeah.
not under plan review inspection fees?
Right.
Okay. Motion by Phelps, second by Pullen to no longer monitor the
To go along with
Lakeshore
what
Drive
you said,
conditions.
yes.
I would.
No, wait.
I'm
no.
gonna go ahead and monitor what he's been doing, but it's not to have to go out and measure the
Measure.
houses
Okay.
every
To not-
every month.
Per
Perform
Allegan County.
engineering services.
We're not going to do it per Allegan County.
Or anybody else.
Ongoing engineering services, you don't have to name for who. You need to say that we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need to be out there to check the roads and
Oh, I
make
do
sure.
too, yeah.
That I'm
That's
good
public
with,
safety.
Yeah.
but
This needs to be done.
You know, the quarter of an inch
Property
fell off the
owners
bluff
just-
this week.
They're absentee property owners, most of them are.
Fine, they're gonna be absentee when the house is in the lake, then, too.
Yeah, and when.
And the other
when they pull
problem,
it out,
I think the
it's
main
not
reason for the
safe.
county perspective is if the house goes into the lake, the gas line fracture is the number one thing they're concerned about. Is they can't just shut that gas line off. Somebody's gotta say, hey, come in and shut off, because there aren't valves, you just shut it off. So that was one of the predominant indicators, you know, and it, so it goes on and on and on. This house that's in Douglas, that's on the bluff, literally on the bluff, that was started on fire. Then I get a email to me with a voice recording, and the voice recording came from Ottawa County Emergency Management Director.
Ottawa County?
Ottawa County, Nick Bonstel. Then it goes to Scott Corbin, Emergency Management Director of Alvin County. Then it goes to Greg. And what it is I want big sandbags, where do you get them? I want them for my house. Big, large sandbags. And it's a caller in Douglas who clearly knows the jurisdiction's Alvin County, but is calling Ottawa. And Ottawa says, we want no part of this. Alvin says, we want no part of this, dump it on the fire department.
Well, you wouldn't
And my
be doing
response
it.
is, what do you want me to do with this?
You could just tell them where to get them, you wouldn't be doing it then.
I don't know where to get big, large sandbags.
See,
So-
the optics of all of this make anybody, certainly us, seem hard-hearted. But the reality is, we didn't tell you to build there. You made an individual choice to build a house within a certain distance. I don't care what it was, I don't care if it was a half a mile, and it's gone away. I'm sorry, you know, you made a bad call. That's a bad call.
Yeah, but-
It turns out to be a bad call. Probably for 40 years, it was a
Yeah.
great call.
Some of those houses have been there a long
But it's
long
not,
time.
you know, whenever this stuff happens, and I saw it happen the last time the lake went up in the property I'm talking about up there, nobody wants to say, it's on me. You know, this shit happens, you know, the lake rises and falls, the winds come, whatever. I knew that. I never thought it would get this bad, but that was my judgment, my investment, you know. You don't come to the fire department when your 401K goes bad. I mean, shit happens.
There's houses being built down there on Lake Shore now that are...
I know,
Of course.
I know, and they're working, the township's working through that whole process. Some of these were started, but, you know, as you know, I asked for a moratorium down there because, you know, there were some approvals back before Griffin was born, and Kyle and John, you know, how could you put a house on a bluff? I mean, look at Eagle Nest off of Dugout Road. Full approval. What did Chief Block do back in 2005? Have me write a letter, there's no fire protection. Because you can't even get to it.
No.
And it was a problem with zoning and the building division. So they learn, you gotta be careful when you issue these building permits on Lake Michigan.
Chief,
Well, I think,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
go ahead.
Chief, can I give an update on that moratorium status? So we did, because this was something Chief and I had discussed about, was there any political will to enact a moratorium along Lakeshore Drive? It was brought up to the planning commission at the township's last planning commission meeting, and it got no bite. So, again, my only statement there would be if that's something you all would want to see further explored, my next request would be for you all as the fire district or the fire board to ask that of the planning commission, because we as staff had tried that once and we didn't get the directive to move forward.
Oh, we don't have the authority to do that. We could recommend it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we don't have the authority to do the moratorium.
No,
The
correct.
township or the city, whichever one.
Absolutely.
I think on the Lake Shore, anything built on the west side of Lake Shore Drive, boy,
Well, I think the person who wrote us the letter, even said in the letter that it is the homeowner's responsibility to take care of the bluff and take care of their property. But it's also the responsibility of the county to provide a road to their homes and to maintain it. So I see this property owner as terribly frustrated with the whole system and everybody passing the buck. And they need to have some kind of an idea. I've been to every single meeting except for the one in the township about the bluff and also about the river. And everybody goes, yep, this is my job and this is my job, and they all talk and then they all go home and nobody does anything. Nobody organizes anything. It's very, very frustrating to be out there on the lake shore and have nobody pay any attention to you or give you an idea of what you can do.
But what can you do?
Well, that's true, but I mean...
Move your house, yeah.
You know, there's no road, but there's no... And then when you go to the road commission, they say, well, we're working on it. She got a nice little letter from the road commission that said they were working on it, not to worry about it. But they need to worry about it. The only time you talk about this is when there's a crisis.
Yeah, you need
And
to-
then when the crisis
yeah.
goes, then they don't talk anymore. Then you've got other things to do. So somebody needs to bring this to a head and get some help from somebody, or at least say who's responsible.
But I don't think it's the Sagatuck
And I don't
Township
think it's the
Fire
fire department either.
No,
We can't do
that,
anything.
that's why, what I understand, you know, Julie, Sonny, I get all that, and I appreciate it, you know, but then I'm completely numb. Jane Griffin and I sent the email, and some others, and then when I read the Allen County Road Commission say, we have a right-of-way, we can only do this, but if the property owner who owns the property to the west, if it washes away, we lose our road, they've got to put boulders there, essentially is what it's saying. In other words, we can't control the bluff. So if the road goes, the road goes. And I was a bit disappointed to see that, to read that response this morning from the road commission. In other words, we're building a road in an area that we have no control over. Then why do we build a road there?
And why, and they said it was an easement. That was really...
Well, yeah, because there's a right-of-way, and the people own to the west. The problem is where the sinkhole is, the property owner, Stanley's property is gone. It's into the right-of-way. Whereas all along Lake Shore Drive, most of those people own...
The west side.
The easement goes through their property.
Right.
So
if it's an easement, that's a whole different battle. It's a whole different...
This happened in 1984 or 86?
86, 87.
When the first washout happened?
Correct.
Yeah.
86.
And here we're talking about it again 36 years later.
Right,
Right.
absolutely.
And we'll do it again another 36 years. I won't be, but someone
Right.
will be.
My experience the last time around was, and I told Ken Trester this the other day, because they're in those condos that are down the floor. I said, if it holds what happened last time, just as you're ready to blow your brains out,
It
it
goes
starts going the other way, and then it keeps going the other way.
That's
For
what
a
we did.
long time.
That's what we did in '87, tore all the docks out, put in 1,000 feet of seawall, raised all the property 3 feet. And the water went down for how many years after that?
Yeah.
And everybody said, why'd you have those high walls there?
Yeah. And now, because we got flooded this last time, it didn't come in on our property, it came in on the cities and sergeants.
The way I see it is, the road specialists are the Allen County Road Commission, not the township.
No.
And that's why, you know, trying to be patient and all that, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not the road commission, and we got to figure out what we can do. I have to work around them or ignore them, and I have to figure out what to do to even mitigate this whole thing. But the road commission and other people think, well, we got to build another road in the back. I spent an hour and a half with a realtor today, and I can't sell my property owner's property because there's no road.
And what has that got to do with you?
This is my life. This person waited for me to come back
Well,
from Traverse City.
it has to be,
So I said, you know, maybe you ought to talk to
yeah.
the board of the road
This is only
commission.
the fire department.
I said, talk to the board of the road commission. Tell them your concern. Because, you know, it's not only the safety, it's, you've got two retired people that want to sell their houses, that their $900,000 house, you can give it to me, or you.
Although now's the time if you're speculating.
I got an offer I want.
This kind of reminds me of everything else. If there's anything that happens anywhere, let's call 911 and the fire department.
Well, that's
And
my
we
point.
we can't be everything to everybody.
That's my point.
And that's why, as you said, we don't want to seem hard-nosed, but, you know, we get tugged in a lot of different directions, and we appreciate going to this, but I have no control over the roads. I can't wave a
No,
wand.
you're not
If it was
road
me,
commission.
that sinkhole and that wall would have been fixed if it was me. Period.
Well, and the road commission needs to
They're
step
the
up.
ones that- they're the ones that put it in.
This is not our job. And when people come to us, we need to send them to the road commission. This is not a fire department issue. And
I
we
have
shouldn't
no
be-
answers for you, I'm
I
sorry.
mean,
I
the,
can't
I
tell
mean,
you
it's really
anything.
nice
They
to
were wondering
go
when they
out
put
and
the
keep track
expressway
of
in.
people's houses for them, but
Remember when they put the
But
expressway
you
in?
can't,
No.
this
60s.
is not a problem
No,
we
it
can
wasn't.
solve for
Well, I
them.
guess
And
it
to
was.
say that we
Yeah,
can
it was, yeah,
is
yeah. I
not
don't
an
remember it.
appropriate
They
thing to
changed all
say,
the water sources.
there's more than one meeting
All the
going
water.
on here.
So with that, would you like me to,
One meeting at a time, please.
would you like me to reread Scott's motion that I heard to make sure it's correct so you guys can
Yeah.
vote on it? Would that be good?
That'd be good.
Okay. So
Should
motion
we-
by Phelps, second by Poland, to no longer utilize fire district staff or resources to measure distances regarding ongoing Lakeshore Drive shoreline conditions.
I like that.
Does that sound good?
Simple enough.
Should we,
Is there any
approve the new-
discussion?
I think we beat that
We need
horse.
to,
Oh, we
come on,
have-
we
Let's
gotta
take
get
this
back
one.
Gotta get
to
back to meeting.
meeting. Is there any discussion?
I think we did.
All right,
I was gonna say one thing, maybe it makes sense, even related to this exact motion, that we add, partly for optics, on the website, you know, some sort of notice regarding high lake water levels and risks and so forth. And that notice basically says, well-written, it ain't our frickin' job. So that we can always, we can say we have empathy for it and whatever, but identify road commission, county road commission as a source related to this, insurance companies, I don't care who, but not us.
Not us.
It's not the fire department that does this. And I think putting that literally on the landing page, even if we only leave it on there for a month or two, is at least, you know, you can't be accused of not paying attention or not addressing the subject.
So just kind of a reference on who they should go to on road concerns on the Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, I mean, I would offer, yeah.
We can do that.
and there's a lot of lakeshore associations out there, so I would think that they should, you know, embody themselves,
Sure.
go to the road commission and
And I
say,
would-
look, and, you know, if there's a holdout for a new road or whatever, then, you know, peer pressure, how long ago did you hear that? Peer pressure should take care of that. We need somebody to do something so that we have access to our properties, and we need to work together. I mean, the fire department can say all they want to, but it's not gonna help. It's just not gonna help your cause, so.
You want me to just add all that to your motion and I
Yeah,
can reread it?
please.
All right. Motion by Phelps, second by Poland, to no longer utilize fire district staff or resources to measure distances regarding ongoing Lakeshore Drive shoreline conditions, and to add a memo to the website with the proper resources to contact regarding roads and/or erosion.
All right,
Okay.
you're good.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Got it.
Thank you.
He has a way with words.
So we were back at,
Yeah,
we
get
were
back
back,
on Fred.
so I was just
Were you
brief-
serving dinner or not?
So I was just encouraging you to consider two things, approval of the plat review and inspection fee schedule, and the last page is the cost recovery fee schedule, which is just an update. I added inflationary, I added my salary increase in there. So we did a 3% increase in the wages, and we did increase for my salary. We kept the trucks the same. So it's just an updated cost recovery fee
So
schedule.
this is all,
Can I have a motion to approve the
I make a
cost
motion to
recovery?
approve the updated cost recovery schedule as presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any
That's good
discussion?
stuff here.
This is also for the planners.
Yeah, is it cost recovery and plan review? I'm requesting both.
I have it separate if that's okay, but either way,
Let's
I've
do
heard they're already
separate
tight,
then.
but
Let's
whatever
do
you want.
separate.
Okay.
It should be separate.
Okay, which one are we working on?
He said cost recovery for this one.
All right. Is there any discussion about the cost recovery? Okay, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Roll call, sorry.
Oops, I'm sorry.
It's money.
Oh, it's money,
Yep. Fox.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Verplank.
Yes.
Poland.
Yes.
And Miller.
Yes.
Okay, and the next one, could we please have a, motion to approve the fee schedule?
Plan review and
Plan
inspection
review,
fee schedule.
yes.
I'll make a
Plan review.
motion to approve the plan review and inspection fee schedule as presented.
Fox was second.
Fox,
Okay.
second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
These are just revisions, just so you know, they're just updated, so.
Yeah.
It's been in place.
My only, I guess, question would be the two lines we're adding around charging for legal counsel review. I just want to make sure when someone requests that they know that's going to happen and they'll get charged for it.
Put it on, we'll reveal it on a plan review.
As long as it's not a surprise, I guess that's what I'd
I know,
rather
Right.
avoid.
Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah,
know ahead of
that's-
time.
What we'll do is we'll add it on there. The review may require an illegal opinion, and what we'll try to do.
Third-party review.
What we'll do is, we'll notify them, maybe what we can do then is talk to legal and say, can you give us a not to exceed or an estimate, so that people aren't blindsided. Will that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the fact that, like, somebody brings in a review, you start it, and you decide that it should be a third-party plan review, you need to contact that person and tell
And we'll get an
them.
estimate, let them know.
User friendly.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Yeah, Griffin.
go, Chris. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Poland.
He's a township man.
Poland.
Poland.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Verplank.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
And Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we covered Lake Shore Drive, did we not?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, correspondence
Thanks for
from Mary
sending-
Whitford.
From Mary,
Whiteford.
Mary Whiteford certainly is a supporter of the fire service, so you all remember this. So, dated January 28th, dear Saugatuck Township Fire District, I would like to personally thank the Saugatuck firefighters who helped make the East Harbor condominiums roadway accessible again after severe flooding. Efforts such as yours help make our district a safe and wonderful place to live. Please accept my sincere gratitude, Mary. Then, got another one. This was a fire in Douglas on Yamato Way.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, it crossed the line, it was in
Private
Township.
and Douglas Gardner Township, yes.
Dear Saugatuck Township Fire District, I would like to personally thank the Saugatuck firefighters who helped put out the Saugatuck Township house fire in December. Efforts as yours help make our district a safe and wonderful place to live. Please accept my sincere gratitude. Let you know.
Moving on, public comments, is there any public comments? Fire board comments? What was it you were gonna?
I want to talk about, Craig Sellery, we talked about, looking into, I think we've talked about it before, and we just let it go by the wayside, and never came up with anything. So,
I started.
I think we did that.
I've looked
I
up a
think we
couple of
did.
them. I didn't bring it
Excuse
with me, but,
Okay, one at a time, please.
okay, sorry, I looked up a couple.
We-
I'll give you no idea. Go ahead.
We did this already, and we couldn't come up with anything that was, it's so all over the board,
Comparables.
that, so the
Yeah.
comps are not there. And fire chiefs and all different fire departments do different things, so we're really kind of out on our own. Unless you wanna do an MML study, and I don't think
think
we're
we
gonna
wanna
come
pay
up
for
with the
that.
same thing. We're gonna
Right.
come up with the
Yeah.
same thing. So I guess we're kind of on our own on this one.
what'd we do last time? We increased it 6%?
You mean just a month ago or whatever?
Yeah.
It was 9%, wasn't it?
9%.
It was based, my advice to you was, the only fair comparison were city managers. That's my opinion, and it's shared by many. And I used some city manager references with the exception of Griffin because of his new position. So based on that was the justification for my request for an increase, because I figured my decision-making is certainly no less than any city manager in this area.
When we do the next budget, maybe we should look at it then,
Yes,
instead of just kind of putting it off.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the next budget maybe then it's part of the next budget
Right,
that we
yeah,
need
yeah.
X more because we need to get him
Increase.
there.
Yeah.
I was just asked by Chieftain Bleicher at the Traverse in the conference, because he was there, he asked me about my raise, because they got a little game going on in Lake Town. Whatever I get, Al Meshkin's got to make his the same or close to it. So
Make Doug's the same? That sounds like an NFL player being arrogant, that I need to be the highest
Been
paid guy
like that for many
in the
years.
NFL.
So, this last time I was 73,290 and Doug was 73. So Doug's raise comes up in April, and that declaration is done by Al. You know, so where I was going at with that is, Doug didn't have the authority to give it to me, but the chief in Park Township, Scott Gamby, called around and got like 5 or 6 fire chiefs, and they were all over, as Jane just said. Chief Gamby he works 20 hours a week because he's a full-time firefighter in Holland, and he gets $36,000 for 6 months. Dave Haverdink is a volunteer chief who's like at $58,000, plus he gets paid for every call. And so they figured he was about $75,000 or $78,000. So that's all over the spectrum, and I can ask Chief Gamby for that information. I know we did a study on it like 3 years ago, you know, and that's what we found. It was, one chief's $5,000, one chief is $10,000, one chief is $120,000. It was all over, based on a lot of things.
And isn't that Seago's chief, any volunteer?
Seago's chief is a police/fire chief. They have one full-time person who's a lieutenant. Fenville has a full-time deputy chief now. The chief is part-time. So in Allegan, the representation is for a full-time chief is not well represented at all. So then you compare what's South Haven and Holland, you know, but there are some, I know Chief Tackett, and he did a study, you know, probably 5 years ago that was very extensive. You know, he didn't get benefits. They gave a stipend because his wife had the coverage. One used his own truck, like for example, Dave Haverdink gets $8,500 a year for using his own truck. So, and then he gets paid for training. Anything after 4 o'clock, he gets paid for, just like the rest of the guys. So, that's what we meant. It was all over the ballpark. That's why I said it was more fair to compare it to city managers who are salaried that have all these night meetings. You know, Kirk has all these night meetings as well, and so does Rich. So I thought that was a better comparison than the Chiefs, but
Yeah.
in our area,
And every area is different. There's nothing like this area.
it's very unusual, because you look at the dynamics, you look at, it's just like Saugatuck City, and I mean this with the utmost respect. They have 900 residents, and they still need at least 3 people in the office. Well, I'm handling 5,900 people with 5 people.
Who answers the phone here? I mean,
Now,
yeah.
we all scramble,
Whoever shares.
whoever can get to it. Where before, John went 24 hours, John answered the phone.
I knew there was always
So
somebody there
now,
when I came in.
the 24-hour people, they grab that phone, and if we see it going, you know, usually Chris will grab it. I don't like grabbing it, because then I gotta take the messages to somebody, and then it's more work for me. So I'm not the phone guy. Didn't hire me for that.
Okay.
Well, I think we need to come up with a plan, and that, so we can go back to our municipalities and justify what we come up with.
All right.
And I think part of that is doing the research and doing it properly, and like we said, comps are all over the place, but we still need to have them.
I Googled a couple of them, 3 of them, I think,
Yep.
and then I printed it out or wrote the information, but I don't know what to do.
Some of them I
That's the
don't,
way to do it.
I don't know, some of them are.
I Googled for places under 10,000 people. 10,000.
Okay, Dan, do you have any
Okay.
comments, fire board comments?
I was just gonna say, I was hoping Peter'd still be here, but, I was wondering if at some point we could put our minds to, or put his mind to, like the municipalities do with the dashboards online, where they give like a quick sense of historical, whatever the points are. And it's that's not my kind of mind, but, over the years, where the budget has been, where the calls, not every piece of information we have, but, 4 or 5 or 6
Yeah,
key
the
pieces
simple
charted
ones.
on one chart that you can kind of go, okay, I see how things are going out there, on a flow, as opposed to just one.
Being dumped on, yeah.
I guess that would be a job for Chris and Aaron, wouldn't
Well, it'd probably actually be more Eric to make
Eric
the
and Aaron?
spreadsheet, and then all I gotta do is upload it to the website.
And
That's
Aaron-
okay with chief.
it? And Aaron did our website.
I already know how we can do that.
Not you,
It's on
Aaron.
it's in the budget, we've already got the.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the data's there, too.
It's
Yeah.
similar to what the 2-year review was, probably, but just, probably an updated version of it.
So I'll get with Eric, with the board's approval, I'll get with Eric, and we'll figure out, we'll have a draft of kind of historical, right, we had historical millages, what the calls go back to 2004, we've got that data, and it shows the percentage of increases, and then maybe the budget.
Yeah, that's pretty easy to upload, or Aaron can do it too, either one of
keep
us.
it
And I want to be clear, I don't maintain that this is a priority one kind of.
No.
Maybe the next meeting or 2 meetings on, nobody's.
Well, it'd be nice when we do go
To
to
the
budgets again.
And when you go to the jurisdictions,
Yes.
it's a nice thing to be able to say, because their level of
Yes.
absorption of information is pretty thin, so.
Okay, Scott,
I have nothing.
Drew?
One more thing, let's keep Stacy in our prayers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Keith
Yeah.
is not doing well, and
She
from
thought
her daughter,
it would
I've
be
heard
a few days.
couple, 7 to 14 days.
Oh, really?
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
He's in hospice, and it's not going well.
He's
so.
at home, but he's.
Yes, big hospice care.
Yeah.
I don't want to spread any rumors, but that's what I heard from her daughter.
Yeah.
I saw her walking the dog today, and I'm like, good for
Meeting's
her, at least.
adjourned.
On foot and Friday.
It's just getting the dog.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta get out.
Have to live like a half a day at a time.
Yep.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.